Winston, what's your job? Anything interesting? Okay. So I was just joking. Dear Paul, when you're ready, please begin.
Good afternoon, everyone. May I ask everyone, does any of you still own a mobile phone that isn't a smartphone? One. Thank you. Yeah. Today, I'm going to talk about mobile phones, specifically on the view of the students on how they are dependent on it. And I've conducted a study together with my colleague. We've conducted it together to 24 students, 12 males and 12 females. So the study aims to know about how students are dependent to their mobile phones. Next is how it aims also to know the student choices of mobile phones and its functions and the reasons behind it, why they choose it. And the next research aim is it aims to know that how the students' attitudes of communicating through mobile phones, or in short, their opinion about it. So, yeah. To start with, my colleague and me divided our research into 3 subtopics. The first subtopic is the mobile usage. Next is the mobile phone purchase criteria. And lastly is the socialization. So, to start with, mobile usage. So we've asked the students on how many hours they usually spend using their mobile phones. And as you can see, majority of the students, which is 59%, spends 1 to 3 hours in front of their cell phones per day. So, which is quite good, but 1 to 3 hours, you can do a lot of things about it. And the rest spend about more than 3 hours. But what is quite surprising about this is that when we divided the results between the male versus the female, you can observe that male spends more time in their mobile phones compared to the females. So, why is this so? You may quite be confused about it, because when you compare male and females, females are more like 3 times talks more than males. So I think there's a typo. So we could conclude from we can interpret from the findings that males are more exposed to the bad effects of excessive mobile usage, since they spend much more time in front of their mobile phones. And yeah, another typo. And this, instead of saying confirming the study that women talk 3 more, it says the results is contrary with the findings. So yeah, it's quite surprising. And the next question we asked in this particular subtopic is we asked the students on what would their behavior be if ever they would lost their phone. Would they panic? And 50% says they strongly agree, and 33% says they agree. So here you can see that majority really of the students would panic. Only 17%, and quite surprisingly, there's still some who disagree on having not panicked on having lost their cell phone, their mobile phones. Yep, so we could say that, yeah, students still cannot afford that cannot afford to let go of their cell phones that easily. So we can say that students are really that dependent to their mobile phones. So we also ask qualitative questions to the students on what are the further opinions they have on prolonged mobile usage, and some of the students pointed out that it has a big effect on health, specifically on having bad eyesight, radiation exposure, and other answer that there will possibility and decline language proficiency, especially to those second language learners, because when you try to text, we don't usually text the whole word. We usually use shortcuts. So yeah. And interpreting these results, we can see that students are aware of the effects of the prolonged usage of mobile phones. And next subtopic we have here is the mobile phone purchase criteria, which is asking the students on if ever they were given a chance to buy a new cell phone, which criteria would they consider first? Now we can see here that brand is much more considered by the student. Then next is the price, then the operating system. So we could interpret this as, why is this so? So we could say that students prefer brand because when they know their brand, they're probably comfortable with it, and it's integrated with the operating system of the brand. For example, Samsung is integrated with Android, or Apple is integrated with its own operating system. So they prefer to choose mobiles we're comfortable with and which they can save money, and since they're comfortable with it, they can communicate easily through it. And next, we also ask them what are the important functions that should be in the mobile phone that they should be using. And quite surprisingly, we see that camera has a high number in ranking. So why is this so? And we're like, mobile phones are usually primarily for communication, and why do they rank camera first? We could interpret this as camera is also quite important because through it, we could communicate through mobile phone, but through camera we could, the students could express more their facial expressions, like in chatting you could video calls like that. So it makes the communication much more understood. And the last subtopic that we is the socialization. And under this subtopic, we ask question about the students, if their opinion, if communication through mobile phone can equivalent to the face-to-face conversation, and majority answered disagree, and 16% strongly disagree. So this we can interpret is that, students still rely a lot to their mobile phones, but they realize that there are still aspects which mobile phones could not offer, such as the facial expression and the touch, and there's which mobile phones could not offer. And these are the following applications which all of the students actually has. So socialization through mobile phones is convenient and cheaper for students. So to conclude, mobile phones is a necessity for students, and students' awareness of negative effects is they are aware of it, but still they couldn't let go of it, so it should be put more into action. And lastly, students should find other means of entertainment that do not involve smartphones. That ends my presentation. Thank you. Do you have any question?
I don't quite catch what you said about the 3 points when you say the criteria for the mobile choice in terms of choosing mobiles? You have 3 criteria. I didn't quite catch the last
It
two.
wasn't 3 criteria though. Thank you for the question. There were lots of criteria, but I just pointed out the 3 majority specifications which most of the students consider. Here you can see they consider most the brand. They rank it first. Then the next is the price. Then this third one is the operating system. Yeah. So I got it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Hi. You mentioned that.
Speak up, Ray.
Sorry.
Speak up.
Okay. You mentioned that mobile usage hour. When you talk about this, and I can see girls are more than boys are more than used than girls. And could you explain more about this? Why?
Why?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's quite surprising, right?
Yeah, it is.
Because mobile phones are mainly used for communication, and yet males communicate more than males. And why males has higher time spent in front of the mobile phones? Probably it's because smartphones now are more equipped with lots of things, like, for example, games. Yeah,
True.
games, music, social networking and stuff.
Yeah.
And one, I could probably say that games is one of the
I
reasons
think so.
why
Yeah.
boys spend more time
Thank
in
you
the
very
mobile
much.
phones. Yeah.
I'm just asking for clarification. When you're talking about the socialization using mobile phone, and you had a communication underneath when you're explaining the socialization. So is it just simply socializing with? Is this just simply communicating with people using cell phones, or is it just like building up the actual relationship with other people?
Can you say this again? Sorry.
Sorry, I don't know what I'm asking. Just asking for clarification. When you were talking about the socialization, but in the slides we were talking about communication as well. So is that just about communicating with other people using your cell phone, or is that more about like socializing, which means building the actual relationship with?
It includes communication and socializing through the cell phone.
Okay, so communication goes
building
on
relationships or maintaining relationships through the cell phone. Is it clear?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is that 3?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.